Hello, everyone, and welcome. It's so lovely to have you all here today. My name is Catherine Woodvine. I am the author of the Sinclair's Mysteries and the Taylor and Rose Secret Agent series, and I am an absolutely huge fan of mysteries. So today I am really delighted to be here to help celebrate this brilliant new book, The Very Merry Murder Club, which is edited by Serena Patel and Robin Stevens and illustrated by Harry Woodgate. Now, this is a really wonderful collection of short mystery stories, which really shows you just how varied mysteries can be. You know, we have everything here from classic whodunits to magical mysteries to detective stories, which will take you back in time, and they will all certainly get you into the festive mood. And you can see what an absolutely beautiful book this is, with lots of gorgeous illustrations. We've even got some hidden here under the dust jacket for you to discover. And today we are really, really pleased to have 9 of the amazing authors joining us. Annabelle Sammy, Dominique Valente, M. Norrie, Elle McNichol, Joanna Williams, Maisie Chan, Nizrana Farouk, Rupa Faruqi and Serena Patel. And we're also delighted to have illustrator Harry with us as well. So hello everyone and welcome. It is so lovely to see you all. I think we're just gradually joining on the video chat. Hi everyone. So just to run through how things are going to work for today's event, because obviously we have lots of people to talk to and we want to hear from all of our amazing authors. So what I'm going to do is chat to the authors in 3 groups, and in between we're going to have some live drawing from Harry as well. And there will be opportunities for those of you watching to get involved as well. So make sure you have your pencils and paper ready if you fancy a little bit of drawing or maybe getting a little bit creative with us today. And of course, we're also going to have some time for your questions at the end. So if you have something you'd like to ask any of our authors, just pop it into the Q&A box at any time during the event, and we will come to your questions at the end. Now, as if all that wasn't enough, we're also going to hopefully have a go at coming up with an idea for our own collaborative Christmas-themed murder mystery today. And we're going to need all of your help to do it. So listen out for how you can get involved and help us come up with a brand new Christmas mystery. But without further ado, it's time to have a chat to our first 3 authors, Serena Patel, Maisie Chan, and M. Norrie. So, Serena, let's start with you. You're one of the 2 editors of this brilliant book. Can you tell us a little bit about the background to the Very Merry Murder Club and why you and your co-editor, Robin Stevens, kind of wanted to create this book?
Yes, hello, and thank you for having me here today. It's always really exciting to be with the other Merry Murder Club authors. So the background to this anthology is that, and I think you know a little something about this, Catherine. So in 2016, there was the first anthology, which was called The Murder Club, and it kind of had a subheading of mystery and mayhem. And Catherine was involved in that. And that was a collaboration of 12 authors, I think.
Yes.
They all wrote mystery stories, and they were some of the best authors at that time coming together to tell mystery stories. And then last year, Farshawe had decided that they would like to update the collection and release another anthology. And they had approached Robin because she was involved in the first anthology. And Robin requested that I co-edit with her, which I was sort of really felt really privileged and honoured to be asked, because Robin's an absolute legend, as we know. And we got our heads together and started thinking about who we would like to include in the anthology. And we wanted some of the best authors that are around at the moment. We wanted the anthology to be inclusive and have a diverse range of stories. We wanted the collection to reflect our readership. And I'm a really big believer that all readers of any background should be able to see themselves as the hero of the story. That's something I feel very passionate about. So that was kind of at the forefront of our minds when we were looking at which authors to approach. And we sort of had this dream wish list of authors we would like to work with, and we sent up our requests, and we were very lucky. They all said yes. So that was a yes moment. And then we sort of went about thinking about what sorts of mysteries we were going to have. And as you know, we've got such a wide range of stories in the anthology. There's all different settings, different characters, and it just feels very fresh and fast-paced and fun. You know, there's some funny stories in there, and I'm just really proud to be part of it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant anthology and it is so much fun. You're quite right. There's really something for everybody in there. And I'd love to hear a little bit from each of you about your stories in the anthology. Maisie, should we start with you? Do you want to tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, so my story in the Very Merry Murder Club is called It Takes a Thief to Catch a Thief. And I was a bit of a wuss and I didn't want to kill anyone. So I thought, what else could I do? And I always loved like Ocean's 11 and A-Team and stuff like that. So I thought I'll do a heist story. So it's about Alma, who's 11 and she's British Chinese and it's Christmas Eve, but someone has stolen her mother, who used to be an infamous cat burglar. So that's kind of the basis of my story.
It's a very cool idea for a story. Emma, what about you?
Hiya. Well, I was a big Agatha Christie fan when I was younger. And I also went on a skiing school trip when I was about 12 or 13. So that's what inspired my story in the collection. And my story is called No Peace for the Wicked, which is a sort of play on the words of no rest for the wicked and peace being skiing. So yeah, when I was asked to be part of the collection, I leapt at the chance, really. It was brilliant, brilliant fun to write.
And Serena, do you want to tell us about your story?
Yeah, so mine's called Silent Night, and it's all about a boy called Arjun who has had to have his tonsils out over the Christmas period, and he's really annoyed because he's got to stay home for the first week of term. All his friends have gone back to school, so it's not even fun to be at home. And after sort of not really attempting to do any homework, and he's fed up with his video games, he turns to the window in his bedroom and starts looking outside and watching his neighbours, and he realises some of them have a bit of a routine, and he starts to kind of notice little details about what they get up to. And then one morning he witnesses an argument between two neighbours across the street, and that sort of sets off a chain of events, and he gets embroiled in what he thinks is a really dangerous situation, and he decides to investigate.
Love it. Kind of almost like a little bit of Rear Window vibes there going on indoors. So obviously all of these, the stories in the anthology are united in the sense that they're all kind of wintry or festive in some way. And there is something sort of, I think we're all quite drawn to mystery stories at Christmas time, winter time. Why do you think that is? You said you were a big fan of Agatha Christie. Obviously she's great at these sort of like wintry mysteries as well. Why do you think we love a Christmas mystery story?
I think partly because Christmas is traditionally a time where sort of, first of all, families get together usually. So there's that idea of people sort of being together in a small space, maybe all kind of packed together. And sometimes you might not have any choice about that. So that really ties in well, I think, with the idea of a mystery with, you know, a bunch of people, definitely inspired my story, like a bunch of people being kind of stranded and unable to kind of escape, you know, each other's company for good or for worse, really. But I also think that kind of cozy atmosphere, it's definitely the right kind of time of year to sort of get cozy and sort of surround yourself in a totally different world.
What do you think, Maisie?
I think like The Dark is Rising, which is that Suzanne Cooper book. I think the snow and the coldness and the dark nights, you know, because it gets in Scotland, it gets dark about 3:30. So I think that kind of element of darkness and coldness adds itself to murder mystery. And like Em said, in my book, there's food and there's kind of stuff about family, but also being lonely. Some people are quite lonely at Christmas. And also it's the haves and haves not, you know, the presents. And I think that's good for like high stories. What have people got and what don't other people have? So kind of, I think that sort of stuff lends itself well to mysteries.
Definitely. You've just name checked one of my total favourite books to read at this time of year then as well, The Dark is Rising by Susan Cooper, which is like magical and mysterious, but it's just so spooky and brilliant for reading as the nights draw in. Well, what I think we're going to hopefully do now is try and kick off our collaborative Christmas murder mystery story. So full disclosure, never tried anything quite like this before. not too sure it's going to work, but we'll have a go and we'll see what happens. Hopefully it should be a little bit like the game Consequences, which some of you might have played, maybe even at Christmas time, in fact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start off a story, and then I'm going to ask each of our 3 authors to suggest some ideas to continue it. And then I'll need all those of you watching to vote for your favourite idea via a little poll, which is going to pop up on your screen in just a moment. So then we're going to choose how our story starts. So this is the very beginning, and you'll see here I've kind of taken my inspiration from a classic country house Christmas murder mystery, the kind of thing you might read in an Agatha Christie story or see in a detective TV programme over the Christmas holidays. So here's how we begin. It's Christmas Eve at Mistletoe Manor, and the snow is falling. As the elegantly dressed guests descend the grand staircase of the drawing room for the evening's festivities, a terrible scream is heard. At the foot of the Christmas tree, a body has been discovered. Someone has been murdered. But who is it? So I'm going to ask our 3 authors now to come up with a suggestion for who our victim might be. So Maisie, tell us, who is your victim?
So my victim is a famous boy band singer called Larry. I think his last name was Pines, I can't remember his last name, but he's got a swollen face.
Murdered boy band singer with a swollen face. Interesting. Or Serena?
So mine was Mr. Zahir Smythe, the owner of the mansion, and he's been crushed by a giant bauble.
Wealthy owner of the mansion crushed by a giant bauble. And M, what's yours?
Mine's a librarian and antiques dealer who's 50, and he's been hit on the back of the head with an antique vase.
Ooh, excellent victims, everyone. So we should hopefully have any minute now our poll popping up. There it is. So if you would like to choose which is your favourite victim to kick off our murder mystery. So let's see. Have a quick look and a quick think, and then we'll see who it's going to be. I think we should have, we've got a winner. Yes. So yeah, Serena, Mr. Zahir Smythe, the wealthy owner of the mansion, crushed by a giant Christmas bauble. This is a dark beginning to this mystery story. That's brilliant. Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. And thank you everyone for voting on that. So now it's over to Harry, who's going to do a bit of drawing and I think show us how they go about creating a character. So, hi, Harry. Where are you? There you are. Hello. Hi.
Yeah, brilliant. So I thought it would be pretty cool to go straight on from the poll and illustrate the character, Mr. Zahir Smythe, being
I love this.
By a giant. I was secretly hoping that was going to be picked because it's such a funny image. So I'm going to hopefully share my screen, and fingers crossed this is going to work, and then we'll go straight into it. Can you see my screen there?
Yes, we can. That's brilliant. And we should also say that if any of you watching this fancy having a go yourselves at drawing our victim being crushed by a giant Christmas bauble, then please do get your pens and pencils out and have a go as well. And Harry's going to show us how it's done.
I'm going to start off with this bauble. This is testing my ability to draw a circle, I have to say.
I'm guessing when you're doing your illustrations for these stories, you usually have a little bit more time to work with.
Like 5 minutes is a push. It's a challenge. I feel like it though. So I'm going to sketch out. It may only end up being a sketch at this stage, but I'm going to sketch out character. I think I'm going to have him sort of stuck underneath it with his hands displayed out.
And it is sometimes quite good to give yourself a challenge, isn't it? Like draw something in 5 minutes, or, you know, you can only use 3 colours and see what you come up with. Like sometimes if you're trying to be creative, giving yourself a sort of little parameters to work in can sort of be a fun way to get going.
Yeah, definitely. And sometimes doing it quickly forces you to focus on the important stuff, such as not the soles of the shoe, like I'm doing right now. So I think he's going to have, I think he's going to be sort of slightly balding. He's got to look wealthy, hasn't he? So he's going to have some cracked glasses. And of course, he's dead already, isn't he? So he's going to have some extra eyes.
Oh, brilliant.
Maybe he needs a beard as well.
You can see he's got his expensive watch on because we know he's the wealthy owner.
Glad that you noticed that. Well, let's add some custom cufflinks itself. So
amazing. Enjoying all these little character details coming to life.
And what are we going to have? Are we going to have reindeers or are we going to have Christmas trees? We're going to have both. Or snowflakes.
So many choices.
Maybe let's do a variety of things. Oh, and some skulls, because why not?
Well, this is a murder mystery story after all. The snowflake as well.
Okay, here we go. And let's try adding a bit of shading as well.
Brilliant. Have you got any tips for anyone watching this if they sort of want to kind of have a go at creating their own characters?
I think with characters, I think the things that I'm drawn to personally are like interesting sort of unique traits. So whether that's something to do like with the stuff that they're wearing or like if they have a particular motive or interest that comes across in like the visuals, I think that can make a really interesting illustration.
Yeah, definitely.
And also the other thing as well is just exaggerating things, whether sort of exaggerating certain features of like their face or their clothing or their posture, making everything a little bit more dramatic can be really good.
Getting lots of comments on the chat from people saying how amazing it is to see it all just happening in real time.
Yeah, this is definitely a condensed version, but
Well, it looks absolutely brilliant to me. Amazing. Look at that. There he is.
last little bit addition, I think, if I can find the right pen. Is one.
Oh, perfect. Perfect finishing touch.
There
That's
we go.
amazing.
One poor wealthy mansion owner crushed by a gigantic Christmas bauble.
That is brilliant. Thank you so much, Harry. That's amazing. We're going to come back to you in a minute for some more drawing, but yeah, that was just perfect. So now it's time to chat to our next group of authors. So welcome to Elle McNichol, Dominique Valente and Nizrana Farouk. Hi. Hi, Nisrana. Hi, Dominique. Great to see you all. So I wanted to ask you, obviously when Robin and Serena, had come up with the idea for the anthology, and then they put their invitations out to all of you, how did you feel about kind of taking on this challenge of writing a wintry mystery story? Nisrana, how about you?
Well, it was quite a big change for me because I write tropical adventure stories. So that's just about as far as you can get from a wintry murder mystery. But when I got that first email with the request to write a story for this anthology, I was really excited and really interested because I love mystery. In fact, the first book that I wrote, which wasn't published and it wasn't very good, it was a mystery. So I was really interested in doing it. I thought I should have a go. And in the end, it wasn't actually that much different to my usual writing because I like to leave a sort of a tiny mystery even in my adventure stories. So in the form of some kind of a little twist or some kind of a reveal. So I just basically expanded on that for this, and then I got this story.
And Elle, how about you? How did you find this challenge?
I liked it a lot. I've been trying to kill someone off in my books for a while, and so I've never been allowed to until now. So I did a very traditional murder mystery in this anthology, and it's great. I took a lot of inspiration from my character is a little girl whose parents own a hotel in the Highlands, and I took inspiration from when I used to work in this very posh tavern, and we all had to work on Christmas Day. And so working on Christmas Day, I've never forgotten that, what it feels like, and that's very much in the book. So I took a little bit of real life, but it's been so much fun. Like I said, I've been dying to knock someone off, so only did.
Well, you do it brilliantly as well, and I really love the first line of your story, which sort of opens the collection. I think really sort of sets the tone. We're in there straight away. So what about the ballet element of the story? Where did that kind of come from?
Yeah, I did a bit of ballet in my time as well, and I had a very scary ballet teacher. I always thought if anyone was in my life was to kill anyone, it would probably be her, or she would be killed. Either way. The opening line is ballerinas are very difficult to kill, and it's true, they're very difficult. So yeah, that's all from life.
So we go from a classic whodunit with a murdered ballerina from Elle to Dominique. Tell us a bit about your story, which is more this kind of like magical mystery.
Yes, so mine's very different. It's called The Frost Wild, and it's set in a sort of alternate like reality of ours, and it's like a world that's like a dystopian reality in a way, because it's very Narnia-esque but a bit darker in a lot of ways. And I always wanted to write my own sort of evil landscape in a wintry setting. So as soon as I got that, I was like, ooh, and it actually bled over into my current book for my latest Starfell. Also has a very wintry theme. So I can thank all of you guys for helping me with that one.
And Nisrana, do you want to tell us a little bit about your story as well? I mean, I love this idea that you've kind of, have that little seed of mystery in all of your books anyway, that you're kind of able to draw out for this.
Yeah, so my story is called Scrabble and Murder, and it's about a girl called Saba who's on a journey with her family, and they have to stop at this sort of rundown hotel because of bad weather. Now the owners, they seem quite bonkers, and some of the guests are quite strange and suspicious as well. At least in Saba's mind, that's how they appear to be. Now, because they're snowed in, the owners, they decide to organize a game of Scrabble. And during this, Saba gets a feeling that something weird is in the air, like someone trying to plot a murder. So then at the end of the evening, it turns out that something did actually happen. Just when the game of Scrabble was over and everyone's gone to bed, it turned out that one of the guests then is found murdered. So that's what this story is about. It's about how Saba then pieces together the events of the evening and then uncovers who the murderer is.
Brilliant. We've got 3 very different but equally compelling mystery stories between the 3 of you. And now we are hopefully going to, between us, come up with the next stage of our collaborative Christmas murder mystery. So we know our victim. The body has been discovered squashed under that giant bauble, but the police will never be able to make it to the manor house through the snowstorm that's whirling outside. So someone at Mistletoe Manor is going to have to investigate to find out who is behind this terrible crime. So who is going to be our detective and who is going to help them solve this mystery? So I'd love you guys, if you can, to suggest us a detective and possibly a helpful sidekick for them as well. Nizrana, how about you? Who's your detective going to be?
Well, my detective would be Hannah, who is the daughter of the housekeeper of Mistletoe Manor, and her sidekick would be Vijay, who is the boy who helps the gardener look after the grounds.
Excellent. So we've got a pair of young detectives. Dominique, what about you?
So mine is a one-armed Arctic explorer named Izzy Frost, sort of like me. I'm born with one arm, and she has a sidekick, which is a butler yeti named Snare.
Amazing, a butler yeti, I love it. Elle.
Well, my detective is a young guest staying at the house called Hugo, and he has the ability to see the future, but he's not very good at pinpointing what he's seeing just yet. He's not so good at tuning into that frequency. He's still learning. And his sidekick is his identical twin, Hamish, who's very accident prone. So I don't know about helpful, but he's there.
This is brilliant. I love all 3 of these detectives, and I feel like I would like to read a full book about each one of them. So hopefully the polls should pop up on the screen anytime now, and you guys can choose whether you're going to go for Hannah and VJ, Izzy Frost and her bow tie wearing butler yeti, or Hugo and his twin, accident prone twin, possible helper, Hamish. So have a quick think and cast your votes, and we will see who is going to investigate this mystery. Sadly, we can't vote ourselves, so we don't know. We haven't got a chance to vote for ourselves. So Elle, we have Hugo with his amazing powers. He flashes the future, and accident-prone sidekick, Hamish. Fantastic. So we have our detectives. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, guys. Great to chat with you. And now we're going to go back to Harry, who's going to hopefully show us how they would go about creating our detectives. Hi, Harry.
Thanks.
Hi. Twins.
Yeah, brilliant. I was slightly terrified that it was going to go to the Yeti, and I haven't. Right, okay, let's go straight to it then. So I think I'm going to start off with Hugo.
So presumably when you're coming up with like a main character, I mean, this is almost the most important part of the process, because this is the character that, you know, is going to be at the center of the story, or possibly several stories. So this is going to be a particularly important, you know, bit of the illustration process.
Yeah, definitely. And you can see probably from what I'm doing here, I have to kind of start off with sketching out the general shapes of the character rather than just sort of winging it as before. So I think I'm going to start off with Hugo here. He sees the future. So how am I going to get that into an illustration?
Yeah, that is an interesting challenge.
I think I'm going to include like a sort of magnifying glass, and then maybe some kind of tiny wisps.
Ooh.
Description. I'm going to have to add in, so add in Hamish, who is very accident prone. So I think I'm going to try.
I love the magnifying glass, because we kind of got an element of the classic detective story there, but also this is it in a new kind of way, a new guise, if you like. And there's Hamish.
He's looking worried, or will be looking worried eventually.
So for anybody who's watching this who might be interested in illustration, or sort of wanting to become perhaps a book illustrator one day, what kind of advice do you give? What are your tips for people who want to get into that area?
I think my biggest tip, firstly, is to read a lot, and not necessarily, and this is one of the things, I think not necessarily just like illustrated books necessarily, but books in general, and think about sort of how you would represent the characters visually, because so much of it is kind of like a process of going back and forth between the author and the illustrator, and each kind of brings their own thing to the story. And then I think the other big thing is just to draw a lot and to try not to worry about making mistakes.
Yeah, interestingly, I think both of those pieces of advice work brilliantly for anybody watching who's interested in writing too. I mean, I think two really key things there, you know, read as much as you can and read as many different kinds of things as you can, but also, you know, just writing and not worrying too much about making it perfect. So the two things kind of really work beautifully hand in hand.
Yeah, and I think it's that sort of thing of if you're drawing and editing a drawing is probably much the same as like writing and editing are two very separate skills, and you can't kind of do them at the same time. So I think being able to get into a space where you're happy drawing and making all the good mistakes is really helpful.
Yes, almost like two different kinds of ways of working, you know, one kind of mindset that's about being creative and giving yourself space to make mistakes and just have some fun and play around. And then, you know, you can separately come back with your sort of editing head on and think, well, how could I improve this, or what needs to be changed? But making sure you give yourself that freedom just to play and enjoy it. And, you know, perhaps even sometimes giving yourself the fun challenge to illustrate twins in 5 minutes. This is brilliant. Yeah, we're getting some more nice comments on the chat here, people saying it's amazing to see the drawings come to life. It looks so good. Although I think we might have frozen a little bit there, possibly. Oh, there you are. Technical hiccup, possibly.
Okay, I think we might need to share the screen. How are we doing on time? Is that 5 minutes?
We're pretty much at 5 minutes now. Should we have another look and see where you're up to?
See where we're up to. Yeah, we'll take a little bit longer, but we're getting there. We've got Hugo. We haven't got Hamish. We've got half a leg.
It looks fantastic. I mean, maybe what we could do is we could just carry on chatting, and then we could come back to you and have a look and see the finished duo in a little bit. That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Harry. That looks absolutely amazing. So next, it's time to chat to our next group of authors. So welcome to Annabelle Sammy, Joanna Williams, and Rupa Faruqi. Hi, guys. So I'd love to start by hearing a little bit of each of your stories. I think hopefully we have everybody.
Hi there, it says, oh, here we go.
Here we are. Joanna, can we start with you? I really love historical mysteries, so I must say your story was immediately right up my street. Do you want to tell us a little bit about it?
Cool, thanks, Catherine. So my story is called Ice and Fire, and yeah, I'm completely intrigued by history, which I think in a way is sort of like a mystery in itself. So I'm interested in how we can sort of read these sort of clues we get from the past and kind of sort of imagine the sort of worlds going on behind them. And when I got the sort of the call from Serena and Robin to contribute a story to the Very Merry Murder Club, it was actually snowing snowing. It was winter time and it was snowing outside. I had this kind of magical sort of moment of snowfall outside my window when I was sitting at my desk. And I decided to set my story in the 18th century, in a year 1776, at a time when it was so cold, and this was before we had central heating, electric lighting, that kind of thing. It was so cold that the Thames used to freeze over, and we would host these incredible kind of like festivals called the Frost Fairs. So if you've ever been to like a sort of winter wonderland style festival in a park, if you can imagine it being so cold that the Thames freezes over, and we have this wonderful fair of entertainment and games and food, and I also read that poets used to perform at the Frost Fairs. So my main character, my detective, is based on a real life person called Lizzie Sancho, who was the daughter of Ignatius Sancho, who lived in 18th century London, and she's going to sort of come to the fore a bit later on with her own novels with her partner Belle, the Lizzie and Belle mysteries. So this story was a really exciting opportunity for me to start to explore the character of Lizzie and set her off on a mystery through the Frost Fair in London.
That's brilliant. I loved it. Annabelle, do you want to tell us a bit about your story?
Yep, so very different. Mine is present day, very contemporary, and it's about two siblings who are not very well behaved, and Tamsin and Rumi are their names, and they have been they've been told by their mum that they have to stay in the flat because they were brought back in disgrace by the local policeman. So they are really bored, and they're sitting on the balcony of their 11th floor flat looking out at the woods behind their tower block, and they oversee some shady goings on in the woods. And because they are very curious and they can't help but get themselves into trouble, they decide to go and investigate it. But obviously it's not easy to investigate a crime when you yourself are already in trouble with the police. So that's what my story is based on, and it's based on the flat that I'm in right now. I'm in the 11th floor of a tower block with the woods behind me. So I literally just looked out the window and came up with the idea.
That's brilliant. I love that. So you could just imagine it all playing out in front of you as you were writing.
Yeah.
Rupa, what about you? Tell us about your story.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I was super excited to get asked to write a story for this book. I think basically I kind of cheated because I took two characters I already loved and knew. I've got also got two mischievous kids involved, Tulip and Ali, based on my daughters who decorated this very tasteful tree, and without even telling me, I just sort of came home and it was there blaring at me. And I already written two books for medical mysteries. And then I was working frontline and full-time through the pandemic, and their stories were all in the summer, and I never got to move on to the end of the school year, to the Christmas, because I was working in the hospital. So when someone said, yes, you can write a short story and it can be wintry, I was thinking, hooray, I can finally write a story with Ali and Tulip. And straight away I thought, snowing, there's going to be a snow-in, they're going to be locked in the school or in a hospital. And the thing is, if you're locked in with the murderer, you can think, oh no, I'm locked in with the murderer, but then you can think, aha, they can't escape, so I can definitely catch them. And I've got like two really can-do heroines, and they've got like their frenemies who help out as well. So I kind of knew that they were going to kind of really get into this mystery. They were going to find out that they were going to find the bad guy they were snowed in with and basically kind of sort it out. And also it gave me a chance to use all my really bad Christmas jokes that I'd been saving to write in a book at some point, but I couldn't because all my books were based in summer. So like I really wanted them to like tie up people with like tinsel and say, haha, I've got tinselitis, because that is a medical term. So it basically allowed me to explore every fun Christmas cliche. You know, we've got bad Santa, we've got lots of Santas, we've got lady Santas, we've got like wicked grandmothers who are kind of escaping and building igloos in the snow. We've got lots and lots of fun things. So it basically gave me a chance to I really thank you for giving me a chance to write the story, because in kind of quite a dark time in the hospital, it gave me lots of fun.
Oh, that's so good to hear. I love it. Writing as like an escape from reality. I'd love to know from all of you, you know, having had this experience of writing these stories, what tips would you give to anybody watching this who's interested in having a go at writing their own mystery, perhaps even writing the full version of the story we've kind of been making up together today? Annabelle, what are your top tips for writing a mystery?
My top tips for writing a mystery are to have a plan before you start. I hate planning and I hate writing stories based off of a plan, but when you're doing a mystery, it's so difficult to go back afterwards and try and fix all the little bits and the holes that you've missed, because unless you are an absolute genius and you can think of things incredibly logically in your mind and see all the pieces going together as you're writing, you are going to miss things out. And the best way to build suspense is by planning as well, because you can make sure that there's clues throughout the story, like equally weighted. So I would say have a plan. That's my top tip.
That's an excellent piece of advice. Joanna, anything to add to that?
Yes, so I would have said exactly the same, actually, Annabelle. But I think maybe to add to, so when you said, like, you know, it's really important to actually kind of see everything, that really helps me as well. I realise that the more that you can sort of bed down in terms of either sort of maps or pictures of the sort of the house, if you could sort of draw, I mean, I don't know whether like Harry might sort of have ideas about this as well as an illustrator, but you do need this kind of real structure to sort of hang your mystery on. So I think it's really important that the things that are fixed, you can actually see for yourself. So I found myself like really sort of trying to sort of, map out exactly where things were happening and have a very strong sense of, so part of my mystery takes place sort of around sort of certain back streets and sort of alleyways and that kind of thing. So even maybe kind of drawing, or I felt at one point, and I think I've come up against this across this in some of your work, Catherine, but the idea of almost like having like sort of dolls' houses or like models that you sort of move around. I think there's just something really powerful about having this physical world as far as you can that you can then sort of like play with when it comes to writing a mystery.
Yeah, definitely. It's all those little details, isn't it? You know, you really feel like you have to know how it all slots together. Rupa, what about you? Obviously, you've written lots of mysteries. What are your top tips?
I think, first of all, top tip, it has to be a story you really care about and only you can tell. If you know that I could give this story something special, I mean, basically, if you gave the same plot to your best friend and you think they pretty much write the same story, then think maybe that isn't the story. It has to be something where you've got really personal, something that you really love about it, that makes you the very best person to tell the story. And for me, it's really, really simple. Every story, and this goes for my like 600-page novels and for my teeny tiny books, every story is about a character you really care about, you know, someone you really, you know, interested in, and the journey they're going on, what they want and what's stopping them from getting it. That's pretty much every story in the world. Someone you care about, what do they want and what's stopping them from getting it, and how they overcome what's stopping them from getting it is a story. So like, to take my story for an example, so I've got my twins. What do they want? They want to get to their hospital for Christmas and sort out the mystery. Who's stopping them from getting it? The bad guy. So what are they going to do? They're going to get the bad guy. They're going to save Christmas. So it's really, really easy. Just have characters you care about and then give them a big problem and then work out how to solve it. I think that's literally every story ever.
That's brilliant. Yeah, some very good advice there. And I feel like chatting about bad guys segues us on beautifully to the final part of our murder mystery story. So the investigation is complete. Our detectives have gathered all the suspects together in the drawing room, and it's time for them to reveal the truth at last. So who murdered our victim with that giant bauble and why? So I'm going to ask you guys, if you could, to suggest your ideas for who our villain behind this dastardly crime might be, and what is their motive for committing the crime. So Joanna, do you want to go first? Who is your villain?
Well, my villain is Colonel Custard, who wanted to rid himself of his fiercest rival for the annual Mistletoe Manor Most Marvellous Mince Pie Award.
Well, baking can get bit of intense.
Bake-off murder. Yeah. We can all get stressed in the kitchen.
Brilliant. Okay, Annabelle.
So my villain is the local postman. So you know how you're supposed to tip your postman on Christmas Eve, especially if you live in a rich manor house, but the local postman got nothing, not a card, not a mince pie on his Christmas rounds. So that's my villain. He was getting...
It's a bit like not the butler did it, but the postman did it. Brilliant. And Rupa, how about you?
Oh, I confess I actually made my suggestion weeks ago, so forgive me if this isn't exactly what I wrote, but I think I suggested to have Santa's helper, who is completely disgruntled that Santa gets all the credit for Christmas. And so they basically wanted to kind of really ruin Christmas, to put Santa in the frame in some way, to kind of discredit the whole idea so that they could get their revenge. I think that's what I suggested. It sounds like me, but if it's something else, say, tell me now.
That's brilliant. No, that's perfect. That's great. So we've got 3 villain possibilities there. The poll should be popping up on your screen any minute for you guys to vote and choose your favourite villain and motive. We've got Colonel Custard, who's got very upset about mince pies. We've got a poor postman who's just, you know, at the end of his tether. Or we've got Santa's elf helper, who's just had enough of Santa taking all the glory and is, you know, out to get their own back. So do have a quick look and vote, and then we will have the final piece of the jigsaw puzzle for our story. Which one is it going to be? It's Colonel Custard, brilliant, who wanted to rid himself of his fiercest rival for the annual Mistletoe Manor Most Marvellous Mince Pie Award. So I guess that means that, you know, our victim was also a pretty good baker of mince pies. Fantastic. Well, we've got the starter for a very intriguing story there, I think. So we know that on Mistletoe Manor on Christmas Eve, Mr. Zahir Smythe, the wealthy owner, was crushed by a giant Christmas bauble. The mystery is going to be investigated by Hugo with his special flashes of the future superpower, with possibly a little help or maybe some hindrance from his accident-prone twin Hamish. And after following all the clues and uncovering the suspects, they've discovered the truth. The murderer was none other than Colonel Custard himself. So I would love to challenge the aspiring writers watching this, I know there definitely are some, to have a go at writing this story themselves. Or perhaps you might be inspired by Harry's amazing artwork to create your own illustrations or a book jacket. Whatever you do come up with, if you have a go, ask a grown-up to share your creations on social media. We would absolutely love to see them. You can tag us at Farshawe Books and use the hashtag Very Merry Murder Club, and we will really enjoy seeing any creations that might come out of those ideas. And I think we should probably be able to post the full version of the story starter on the Farshawe Books social accounts as well. So if you didn't get a chance to scribble that down, you can pop over there, check it out, and then, you know, go and have a go at your own festive Christmas mystery story. And hopefully we can now sort of pop back to Harry as well and have a look and see if we've got a final illustration of Hugo and Hamish. Hi.
Yeah, hi, we do indeed.
Amazing.
And there we go.
Oh, fantastic. Wow, they look absolutely brilliant. I love it. And a few baubles as well. It's like a little clue. That is so brilliant. Well, that should hopefully be a great bit of inspiration to anybody who wants to go away now and have a go at writing this story. Thank you so much, Harry. It's been amazing to see your brilliant illustrations just coming to life before our very eyes. A little bit of Christmas magic there for sure. So we don't have a lot of time left, unfortunately, but we do have about 10 minutes for questions. I have loads more that I can ask all of our authors and Harry as well. But if you guys do have anything you'd like to ask, please do pop them into the Q&A box and I will ask them to our authors. We have one from Stevie here, which I thought I would start with, which is, who is the best crime writer ever? Who are your favourite crime writers, or perhaps your favourite crime or mystery books? Who shall I ask first? Serena, how about you?
Had a feeling you were going to come to me.
That's the problem when you're the editor. Your name's always first on the list.
I think, like a lot of us, I grew up loving Agatha Christie. You know, grew up sort of watching Poirot, reading Christie novels. I just always loved the kind of cozy feel to the crimes in her books. And then from currently, I have to say I have loved Agent Cyber, which Annabelle writes, and I have also loved Medical Mysteries by Rupa. So yeah, I think we're in a really good time at the moment that we're getting some really great mystery stories coming out. So that's really exciting.
Absolutely, that's brilliant. Yeah. Elle, what about you? Do you have a favourite mystery author or crime book?
I have, it's for me, Arthur Conan Doyle. I'm Scottish, so I have to. And he makes a little Easter egg appearance in my next book. But yeah, the writer of Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson is definitely one of my favourites. And I also love so many of the authors here tonight. I love their mystery stories. I agree with Serena, we're in a new golden age. And I love Sharna's as well. And Sharna's not here tonight, but I love High Rise Mystery a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It's brilliant. I like this question from Phoebe. What is the most fun thing about writing a mystery story? Annabelle, you write lots of mysteries. What's the most fun thing about writing a mystery story?
I think I always like writing the scenes where there's a lot of action happening. I feel like you can do quite good action sequences in mystery stories, especially because they kind of cross over into like detective stories, which they are kind of different genres, but when they're together you can kind of get the like rolling over car bonnets and running and hiding behind walls and kind of things like that. I always really like writing those scenes. And also the reveal at the end where the detective says how the crime was committed and everyone's really shocked at who it was, and putting those twists in, that's always really fun and satisfying as well to write.
And Rupa, what about you? Do you have any things that you find particularly fun about writing mystery stories?
Yeah, it's a bit like, it's like having your own kind of puzzle piece, your own board game, and you can kind of choose all the rules and work it out. When I was little, we used to have these books called Choose Your Own Adventure, and it's like, oh, make your decision and turn to page X, and make your decision and turn to page Y. And I guess that's what we did, like, you know, when our parents used to let us play video games too much. But it's amazing because you could basically take your character, make them your hero, and you could choose like wherever they go in the story and make amazing things happen to them and make them like absolutely brilliant because they will solve this problem. You're basically creating your own superhero, throwing problems at them, and they're overcoming them and leaping through them. And you can create, and I love that you could actually go completely wild with it. I think in one of my kind of first books, I actually had like a llama chase scene, and I called it like, an alpaca chase scene. I called it Alpacas Assemble, where they were trying to kind of take off, find, you know, a kind of a secret sample on an alpaca in London Zoo, and then suddenly got attacked by a horde of marauding alpacas in the zoo, and then chased down the bad guy who had to run away. And I thought, yes, you can do that in a mystery story, and it's perfectly valid because they're looking for evidence. It's like, you know, you can actually just run with your imagination and know that you're in control and that you're going to kind of solve the puzzle in the end. So it's a bit like being kind of, I don't know, a game master and a player at the same time. So you give yourself two of the most fun roles.
Definitely. I love that. A question here from John. What's the most creative way you know to get over the dreaded writer's block? That's a really interesting question. I'm going to be interested to hear everyone's answers to this. Maisie, what about you? Do you have any strategies for getting over writer's block or sort of coming up with ideas when you're feeling a bit kind of, you know, short on inspiration?
Yeah, I'll go watch films or TV and just like go away from the writing for a bit and then come back to it with like new kind of motivation and vigor. And also I did morning pages, which is just writing 3 pages of whatever's in your mind in the morning. And I find that helps my creativity if I'm a bit blocked.
Definitely. Dominique, do you have any strategies for writer's block or finding inspiration?
Yeah, it's sort of to get moving. I feel like my brain starts kicking in when I start moving my feet. So I sort of go for a walk or even a drive, you know, something like that. And it's just, things will start moving. So sort of changing my location. And it really works. And sometimes even just the shower, you know, just being anywhere but at my desk. And that's kind of where the ideas will actually come.
Definitely. Harry, here's a question for you. Astrid wants to know, what is your favourite thing to draw?
I think probably for me it is like I don't want this to be too wide, but like characters in general, I find drawing people really interesting, because it just provides you with such endless variety. And doing picture books, as well as this being my first sort of middle grade kind of illustration, yeah, you get to represent such a wide range of people. And for me, like in a professional sense, being able to let all sorts of kids see themselves visually represented in a book is really important to me. So I think that, yeah, that's probably my favorite thing to draw, I think.
Great. Oh, so many good questions here. It's difficult to pick one. This one, who is your all-time favorite author? So this could be a mystery author, it could be somebody totally different. Em, what about you? Who's your all-time favorite author?
Oh, tricky question. Okay, probably children's writer. I really love Catherine Rundell. And adult writer, I really love short stories, and I really love Raymond Carver.
Great choices. Joanna, how about you? All-time favorite authors? It's so hard.
I find that's such a tricky question. Writing for adults, there are two authors I really love. They're Toni Morrison and Alice Walker. And writing for children, it kind of changes all the time. When I was a child, it was C.S. Lewis and Judy Blume, because at the time, it's quite a long time ago when I was a child, but Judy Blume was really one of the only authors who seemed to be sort of dealing with the sort of real issues that kids faced in their everyday lives. I think that was kind of like a rarer thing. Like nowadays, I think we're very sort of lucky. There are lots of writers sort of dealing with kind of the challenges that children and young people sort of face on a daily basis, and children sort of from a range of backgrounds. But Judy Blume, I feel, was sort of doing that at a time when not many people were. So she's probably the one that I'd hold up there. Yeah,
definitely. Amazing. We are almost out of time now, but for our last question, we've talked a lot today about writing and about tips for writing mysteries and about tips for illustrating and all sorts of different things, but that hopefully will help people watching if they're interested and inspired in going off to do some writing of their own. But I've just got a general question here that just says, any tips for young authors? So for young people who are interested in writing, they want to do more, where should they start? Nisrana, do you have any suggestions for them?
I would say the simplest thing, the best thing you can do is to read a lot. That's what even authors do. You know, when you asked a question before about what you do when you're stuck, and even then, reading is always a good place to start, because it's, you know, you can see how other people write, you get loads of inspiration of your own. There's so much benefit to reading, and I would say that's the place to start.
Brilliant. Serena, do you have anything to add, some final tips for young writers watching this?
I think just writing in general, just, you know, all those ideas that are in your head, even if they're not perfect or fully formed, get them down. Quite often, as somebody was saying earlier, we don't get ideas when I'm sat at the laptop, annoyingly. Quite often I get ideas when I'm washing up or in the car, or, you know, and doing anything else but trying to write. And so I write them down. I've got a whole folder of post-it notes with random scrawlings, and I might not use them right now. I might not use them this year or next year, but at some point I might come back to them, and that might spark the idea for a story. And then also just always being observant, looking around you, you know, using those details about people and places and feeding those into your writing, because that's what makes it relatable, that's what makes it feel real, that's what makes the reader feel like they're really there.
Definitely a great tip for aspiring writers, but also a great tip for aspiring detectives who might be watching this. Be observant, very important. So sadly we are now out of time now, so all that's left is to say a huge thank you so much to all of you for being part of this event, to authors, to Harry. We really hope those of you watching have enjoyed hearing all about the Very Very Murder Club. It is absolutely brilliant, so if you haven't got a copy yet, make sure you get one from your local Waterstones or online at waterstones.com. It's very lovely and shiny, and you even get your own Very Merry Murder Club badge in the back as well. So thank you so much everybody for joining us. We hope you've enjoyed hearing a bit more about mysteries and writing mysteries, and really getting into the festive spirit. So happy reading, and of course, happy Christmas, everybody. Bye-bye.